NFL trades, Major League Baseball season's underway, and we can't forget about the NBA. I've got 4 of the hottest players for you in their sports.
And I'm here to tell you which cards to buy, sell, or hold.
This is The Forecast. I'm happy to be back here with you guys for another week of The Forecast. I missed you last week. We're done with all that April Fool's foolishness. Hopefully Geoff's feeling a little bit more sane. And now I'm back here to bring you 4 more cards, 4 of the hottest guys in their sports. We're going to be talking basketball, football, and some baseball today. So let's start with baseball. And one of the hottest players in the sport, certainly one of the hottest players in the market coming into this season, and he's got the contract to reflect it. And of course, I'm talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, one of the hottest players coming into the season in the market, and also one of the hottest players in terms of his bank account. 10 years, $340 million. We know he signed that in this past offseason. He got off to a slow start when this season began, though. That didn't make investors super thrilled. He racked up more errors than games he's played, only batting .167, albeit he did have a nice 465-foot homer. On Monday night's game, though, he suffered a partially torn, dislocated shoulder. He crumpled to the ground in obvious pain. It is the last thing that investors want to see of Tatis's card. Now, reports have come back that he might even need surgery. So it is bad news. Not only is he off to a slow start after signing a monster contract, but now he might need surgery on his shoulder. What does that mean for his card? Well, let's take a look at his 2018 Topps Chrome Base PSA 10. As a result of all of those things, Tatis cards have flooded onto the market as some investors have jumped ship. You can see that reflected here in this chart. Over the last 30 days, his card is down 14% in value and dropping. So Geoff, what does this mean? Is this an opportunity here? Do we buy, do we sell, or do we hold?
When Fernando Tatis Jr. went down in pain, thriving on the ground with that shoulder injury the other day, I was worried for the hobby. I was worried for many of you who have invested a lot of money in Fernando Tatis Jr. cards. And I was worried for baseball. Baseball needs this guy. He is a bright young player. He is an up-and-coming star, and he's very marketable. He looks different than most other players. He's got a good personality. He is a marketable star. He's needed for the hobby, and he's needed for baseball. Now, the good news is it looks like his injury is not that bad. It's not going to require surgery. He's only going to be on the 10-day DL. He should have the opportunity to come back. As long as the doctors don't think that this can turn into a systemic issue, I'm still high on Tatis, and I would take advantage of the current dip in his card prices due to this injury to buy more Tatis cards.
Now, it's not NFL season, but the NFL trades when it comes to the draft and otherwise, they don't seem to stop. The NFL now, it's kind of like the NBA. It's a year-round sport, and it's a lot of fun because it's not just the other positions in football, but it's the most important position in football that seems to be on the move. And of course, I'm talking about the quarterback position. So let's talk about the latest quarterback in the NFL on the move, and that is Sam Darnold. Previously with the New York Jets. Now he's going to be a Carolina Panther. And the Jets, in return, they got a second-round pick, a couple other picks as well. That second rounder, I think, is in 2022. There's only so much you can get for Sam Darnold, who's been, at best, a mediocre quarterback so far. Now, with the Jets, he was 13 of 25. He threw for 45 touchdowns, 39 interceptions, 20 fumbles, and an average QBR in the mid-40s. Given Darnold didn't have tons to work with up there in New York, and he will have more weapons in Carolina. He'll also have more of an opportunity to prove what he's really worth then, because he's got more weapons. It's a change of scenery. You can't blame that Jets franchise anymore that everybody loves to hate on. So this is kind of the time to put up or shut up for Sam Darnold, and he is going to get that opportunity. What's that mean for the card market? That means that there's some renewed excitement in Sam Darnold's card is what it means. Let's take a look at his 2018 Prism Base PSA 10, and you'll see here exactly what I mean. Over the last 30 days, Sam Darnold's card is up 41% in value. That means that there are certainly investors in the hobby that are excited about a new change of scenery for Sam Darnold, maybe some more weapons, what that might mean for him. So Geoff, do we buy, do we sell, or do we hold with Sam Darnold?
I remember at the 2019 National Sports Collectors Convention watching Gary Vee walk around looking at Sam Darnold National Treasures RPAs around the show floor. Of course, Gary Vee is a huge New York Jets fan, and he was buying Sam Darnold cards. My advice today to Gary and to anybody else who holds Sam Darnold cards, sell right away. You have this very unique window of opportunity where his cards have actually gone up in value because people are excited about the fresh start that he might get in Carolina. For me, I'm not excited about it at all. This guy has done nothing that has proven that this switch to Carolina is suddenly going to be better. And people say, well, maybe the New York Jets are just such a badly run organization that they couldn't get the most out of him. Well, what makes you think Carolina is going to get the most out of him? Carolina couldn't get the most out of Teddy Bridgewater this past season. And by the way, Teddy Bridgewater was great the year prior with the New Orleans Saints. But then he goes to Carolina and he's very mediocre at best. By the way, USC, the college football program, also couldn't get much out of Sam Darnold either because frankly, he wasn't great at USC. He wasn't great at the New York Jets, and I have no reason to believe the Carolina Panthers are suddenly going to resurrect his career. For me, I am selling Sam Darnold while you can.
Let's take a trip back to baseball for a second. We're going to talk about a guy who's not as hot as Tatis in the sport, but Yoan Moncada. He's a guy who is certainly worth a discussion in the hobby. Now, after a solid 2019 season, he had 25 homers, 79 ribbies that season. Then he had an underwhelming 2020. However, 2020 was a weird season, let's not forget. So there's a lot of people in the hobby willing to give him a pass for 2020. A lot of baseball fans willing to kind of give him a pass for 2020 and see what he can do here in 2021. According to BetMGM, his team, the White Sox, they've got the third best odds of winning the World Series this year. So he's on a very good White Sox team. Will that help him? Now, he had a good showing in spring. So that's good. There's some excitement there. Then he got off to another slow start this season. It's still early on, but let's take a look at what's happened with his card. His 2017 Topps Update PSA 10. Now, over the last 30 days, Moncada's card is down 14% in value. If you look at this chart, it has been declining steadily since around mid-March. So, Geoff, what do we do here with Yoan Moncada's card? Do we buy? Do we sell? Or do we hold?
Yoan Moncada was great in 2019, but not so much in 2020. And so far this year, he had a good spring training, but the regular season, he hasn't done a whole lot so far. One thing I do like about Moncada is that he is part of a great young core nucleus of the Chicago White Sox, and the White Sox have such talent on their roster that they're actually the third favorites right now to potentially make it to the World Series. And that's a big deal for card prices. Any player who's playing for a heavily favored team, if they can deliver on that promise, that's always a positive thing. But what kind of season are we going to see from Moncada this year? I'm not so sure. And as a result, I would say that any investment in his cards at this point is pretty speculative. Now, his cards are not that expensive, so if you want to put a speculative investment out there, he might be a pretty good guy to do it in. For me, I don't feel strongly enough about him. I'm just a hold on Moncada right now.
Now, you know I can't get out of here without talking a little basketball. So today I'm going to talk about KarlAnthony Towns. He's a player who has a big name in the sport, but sometimes can seem a bit undervalued because of where he plays. Now, of course, he was the first overall pick in 2015 by the Minnesota Timberwolves. As a rookie, he averaged 18 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, and since that year, he has averaged over 20 points per game every year, over 10 rebounds per game. He's a hell of a player, but he plays in Minnesota. And because of that, even though he's one of the best and most dominant big men in the league, he's in Minnesota. And so sometimes he's overlooked, and I do think can be a little bit overlooked in terms of the hobby as well. Now, Towns also, he got COVID during the pandemic. I guess it's still technically the pandemic, but you know what I mean. During the height of the pandemic, he got COVID. And he's got that really terrible story where he lost his mother, and then he lost a bunch of other family members to COVID. They had an outbreak in their family. He had a really tough time with it. So it was a weird time. He's been coming back, and he is, in terms of his basketball play anyways, I mean, that dude is playing at an all-time level right now. Big Cat seems to be fully healthy and fully ready to take on the NBA. The amazing numbers that he's been drawing. He had on Saturday, he posterized Joel Embiid. He also had a 39-point, 14 rebound game against the 76ers. He's got the probable rookie of the year playing alongside of him with Anthony Edwards. It's actually a pretty good team that they've got up there in Minnesota. So let's take a look at what that means for Big Cat's card. His 2015 Prism Base PSA 10. Over the last 30 days, his card is up 12% in value. But if you're looking at this chart, let's not just look at the last 30. Look at this last 2 weeks that I'm showing you here. The last 14 days, his card is up 31% in value. So over these last couple of weeks, you've gotten a big uptick in his card value. Investors are excited about KarlAnthony Towns with some of these crazy performances that he's been putting up of late. So Geoff, what does this mean overall for the hobby with KarlAnthony Towns? Are we buying, are we selling, or are we holding?
KarlAnthony Towns is a really good player stuck on a really bad team in a really small market. And for that reason, the hobby does not appreciate the greatness of this guy, because he is great. He's great statistically. He's a dominant force on the court, but he's going to be in Minnesota for a long time. He's got a lot of time left on his contract. Now, maybe Minnesota is an up-and-coming team now because you've got Anthony Edwards, who's been playing well this year. D'Angelo Russell is back. Maybe they can start to do something. But outside of that, it's going to be a little while till he has the opportunity, Towns has the opportunity to maybe switch teams, team up with some other guys, and go on and actually get himself in contention. For me, this guy is still a younger player. He's still got a lot of great basketball ahead of him. I still like KarlAnthony Towns from an investment standpoint, but it's got to be a long-term investment. If you're going to buy KarlAnthony Towns cards, you got to be willing to hold these cards, in my opinion, for a number of years, hoping for that opportunity for him to actually make a run and get in the spotlight, and that opportunity may not be coming real soon.
All right, guys, so that'll do it. As always, hit the bell icon if you haven't done so already. Check out the Sports Card Investor app. Check out Market Movers for all of the card charts that you saw on today's program. I'll be back again next week with more forecast. And as always, happy investing.